Okay, so here is the Science 9 final review answer key. So number 1 says, what's the effect of electrolytes on voltage? That's a problem. You have to identify the manipulated variable, which would be manipulated as electrolyte. Responding would be voltage. Number 2, what's the manipulated variable and the responding variable in the chart below? Manipulated always comes first. So the first one, temperature, is manipulated. Second thing, the reaction rate is responding. Okay, and then they're in the order in which we did these in class. So we're going to do bio, then chem, then environmental chem, and then space, and then finally electricity. So it says the litter of kittens are born and some are black and some are white. Is this variation among or within species? So they're all born kittens, so that means they're the same species. That is within a species. Among species would be amongst different species. Remember, by going through this and me telling you the answers, you're only getting half the review. By finding the answers in your notes, when you find the information on variation within species, you're also going to find the information on among species. Number 3, what's the difference between niche, habitat, ecosystem, and population? Niche is where you live and what you do. Habitat is where you live. Niche is mostly what you do. An ecosystem is all the living things in an organism. Population is number of one type of organism, and community is all the living things that interact in one place. Grass is eaten by deer, which is eaten by wolves. If there's more deer born one year, what's going to happen to the amount of grass? It'll decrease, obviously. And what will happen to the amount of wolf? Well, if there's more deer born, there'll be more wolves. They'll increase in population because there's more food. And then bacteria lives in the gut of termites. It allows the termite to digest the wood, and the termite provides a safe place for the bacteria to live. What kind of relationship is that? Well, they both benefit, so that's mutualism. Where one benefits and one has harm, that's classified as parasitism. And where one benefits and the other one's unaffected, that's commensalism. List 3 ways that sexual reproduction is different from asexual. So sexual reproduction involves 2 parents, asexual just 1. Sexual reproduction produces a variety in living things. Asexual make exact copies. Sexual usually produces less offspring. Asexual usually produces more offspring. Sexual involves a sperm and an egg, and asexual does not. You should know some examples of each. So 3 examples of asexual reproduction: spores, binary fission, budding, self-pollination, suckering, meristem function. All of those make many copies starting with 1. Name 3 methods of sexual reproduction. That could be cross-pollination, flowering, anything that has sperm and egg or zygotes, internal fertilization, external fertilization. Remember, the flower does not do asexual because it still has a sperm and egg. Even if there's only 1 flower and it self-pollinates, that's still sexual reproduction. It's just very poor sexual reproduction. Number 10, name a trait that has continuous variation. That would be something that has lots of possibilities like skin color, weight, height. Name a trait that has discrete variation. Remember, I taught you it's either this or that. So tongue rolling, hitchhiker's thumb, earlobes, there's limited choices there. Place the words in the correct sequence. So gametes, you start with gametes, go through fertilization, form a zygote. You should also know that in this case, we have mitosis and meiosis. So to make the gametes, it's meiosis. To get the zygote to grow, mitosis. And then that would lead to the embryo, right? Because it's going to grow and go through cell divisions to get there. Just going to save that. We'll go on to the next page. Name the process that makes body cells grow and multiply. That's binary fission or mitosis. Number 14, remember mighty mitosis. Name the process that makes sex cells. That's meiosis. There's a question every year, by the way, on mitosis, meiosis, fertilization, gametes. You need to know that. Here, 2 black horses mate and produce mostly black offspring, but 1 white baby is produced. Which gene is the recessive one? Well, that would obviously be white. Black would be dominant. And remember, we did the Punnett squares like this to show how it's possible. Number 16, identify the following as heritable or not. Earlobe shape, you inherit that. That's heritable. The ability to swim, non-inheritable. That's why there's swimming lessons. You have to learn how to do it. If it was inheritable, it'd be funny. You'd throw kids in and they'd either have the genes and start to swim or not have the genes and they would drown. Tongue rolling is heritable. You either can or you can't. Scars, not heritable. You pick those up as you go through life. Language, same thing. Language is not heritable. You actually have to learn to speak. If it was inheritable, it'd be hilarious. Kids would be born, they'd look up and say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, how's it going? Well, no, that's not what happens. They usually go, wah, wah, right? Because they don't, you have to learn how to communicate. That's the only kind of communication they know instinctively. Is body mass determined by nature, your genes, or nurture, the environment? And we know that it's caused by both. What chemicals are genes made of? That's easy, DNA. If a human body cell has 46 chromosomes, how many there are in the sex cells? There's 23. Okay. And which type of reproduction results in very fast population growth rate? Asexual is fast. Which type of reproduction is needed to increase biodiversity of life on our planet? To increase biodiversity on your planet, you need sexual reproduction, right? Because that creates variety, both through crossing over and by having different parents. Crossing over results in the fact that you could produce millions of different kinds of sperm and egg, and then different people, then of course means that those different possibilities are even extended even more. Identify the following as natural or artificial selection. Okay, wolves have cubs, that's natural selection. Wild horses have offspring, that's natural selection. A breeder puts 2 horses together in a corral, that's artificial selection because people are choosing which ones mate. The best seeds are planted next year is artificial selection because you're choosing the best ones for the next generation. Put these in order from the largest to the smallest. So smallest is chromosome, even though it's a longest is chromosome. And then a chromosome is made 2 or 3 DNA molecules scrunched together. And that molecule, when you stretch it out, has thousands of genes on it. And the genes are made of millions of nucleotides. Number 24, what are some ways in which humans are trying to preserve plant and animal biodiversity? So for plants, we have seed banks. For animals, we have zoos, we have breeding programs. We have wildlife refuges as well to protect them. We also have treaties to protect endangered organisms like the CITES Convention. We also have the Convention on Biodiversity, where we set up natural parks. In the diagram below, put an X where the generalists are found and Y where the specialists will be found. So you can see X is all over the place. The specialist is only in one space. That's why there's only one Y. Name a species that's endangered, polar bears. One that's extirpated, that means locally extinct. It also needs to give a timeline as well, locally extinct in, 2001 was grizzly bears. Name that's one that is extinct, T-Rex is extinct. Explain how bacteria became resistant to antibiotics or how giraffes got their long neck. So in order for the change to happen, what has to happen is, let's do antibiotic resistance. So antibiotic is applied to the person who has the infection, and they take the medicine for 3 or 4 days, and then they feel better, so they stop taking it. What's left is the strongest of those bacteria, and then they start to multiply, and then of course they'll do some crossing over, and they'll change a little bit, and then you go back to your doctor, you're sick again, they give you antibiotics again, you take it for 5 days this time, but then you're feeling better, so you stop taking it. What's left are the strongest of those ones, and they'll start to multiply, and they'll start to change and mutate as well. So eventually you have stuff that can't be killed by antibiotics. Giraffe, how did the giraffe end up with a long neck? Well, it had to be born with a long neck, okay? And so ones that are born with slightly longer neck get a little bit more food. Those with slightly shorter necks get a little bit less food, and then multiply that effect over and over again. The ones that slightly longer necks are a little bit healthier. They get a little bit more energy. They reproduce a little bit more. And then in 100,000 years, you have these beautiful giraffes with ridiculously long necks. So now into the chemistry. We need to know what the WHMIS symbols are and what they stand for. So using the new WHMIS symbols, you need to be able to look at those. Okay. Classifying the following as pure solution or mechanical mixture. Pizza is mechanical mixture. Water is pure. If it's distilled water, it could be a solution, really, if it's coming out of the tap. Copper is pure. Classify the following as metal or non-metal. You'll have your periodic table. Left of the staircase is the metal. Right of the staircase is non-metal. Lining the staircase are the metalloids. So fluorine in your periodic table is on the right of the staircase, so it's a non-metal. Beryllium, you'd have to find it. It's a metal. It's left of the staircase. 5 clues that indicate chemical changes happen. So change of color, gas forms, or bubbles forms, 2 liquids form a precipitate. The change is difficult to reverse. There's a heat change, new substance with new property forms. They won't ask you to list them on the exam, but they might give you a list of 4 and say which one of these is a chemical change. So give 5 examples of physical changes: boiling, cutting, dissolving, melting, freezing, sublimation, where it goes directly from a gas to a solid or a solid to a gas. No new chemicals are made. That's the important thing. A red chemical and a clear chemical are mixed, and an orange chemical forms. That's definitely a chemical reaction because there's a new color change. Also difficult to reverse, new substance with new property forms. There might have been a heat change, but it doesn't say that. Give 2 examples of chemical reactions that involve oxygen: corrosion, combustion, photosynthesis as well. Which of the following metals reacts the fastest? So you need a periodic table. So the fastest reacting metal is going to be the one closest to the bottom left. And in this case, it's sodium. Number 35, which of the following non-metals reacts the fastest? So you have to look at your periodic table, and the one the closest to the top right would be the one, but not in the very last group, because those are the noble gases. They don't react with anything. So that's going to be fluorine. Classify this as endo or exo. Exothermic releases energy to the surroundings, so the surroundings get hot. That's like burning wood. Endothermic absorbs energy from the surroundings, so the surroundings get cold. So that would be like or they just pull energy in, like photosynthesis or electrolysis, right? That takes energy in. In order to increase the rates of reaction, what do we do to the following? So this is easy. To increase reaction rate, we increase temperature, we increase surface area, flatten it out like a pancake, grind it up into a powder. Concentration, we'd want to increase the concentration. We can do that by evaporating some of the water in it. So we have the same amount of substance dissolved in less water. What do we add? We add a catalyst to speed up reaction. Of course, to slow it down, you'd add an inhibitor. In a chemical reaction, 38 grams of product is recovered. 39 grams of product is recovered. 12 grams of oxygen reacts. How much magnesium was used? Well, that would have to be 27 to make that work. Number 39, what's the name of the substance that has an atomic number of 13? So you'd grab your periodic table and you'd see that it was aluminum. How many electrons does carbon have? You'd go to your periodic table. It's atomic number 6, so there's 6 electrons, which also means there's 6 protons. How many neutrons does sodium have? Well, atomic mass is 22.99. We'll call it 23. Atomic number is 11. 23 minus 11 gives you 12 neutrons. Next one. Name a chemical that will react similar to sodium. Using the periodic table, find anything in the same column. That would be lithium or hydrogen. Classify the following as ionic, metal or non-metal, or molecular, with 2 non-metals. So NaCl, Na is sodium, that's ionic. C is carbon, therefore it's molecular. So you're going to have to remember the whole thing I did with ionics, with the I and the balancing of the chart, and I don't use prefixes. I'm molecular with the sideways M, and you must use prefixes because you will be required to do the following. Name them. So this one is iron 3 chloride. This is carbon. This is a molecular, so it's carbon tetrahydride. This is also molecular, so it's carbon dioxide. Remember, you're not allowed to use mono on the first one. This one is a metal, so it's just magnesium oxide. You read it off the chart. And this is FeCl2. That one's iron 2 chloride. So next question, the formula CH3COH. How many atoms of carbon are there? Well, there's 1, 2 carbons. How many hydrogens are there? Well, there's 3 there plus 1 on the end. That's 4. How many oxygen atoms? Well, there's 2 there. 1, 2. How many atoms in the whole thing? Well, 4 plus 2 plus 2 is 8. If iron forms Fe3 plus and oxygen forms O2 minus, calculate its formula. So you had to, basically it's the ionic, right? So you need 2 Fe3 pluses to balance out 3 O2 minuses. Or you can use the crisscross method to find the formula. In the word equation, carbon plus oxygen, arrow, carbon dioxide, what is or are the reactants and what is or are the products? And so you have to remember RAP, R-A-P. And then, reactants are on the left, arrow is in the middle, products are on the right. Draw a ball and stick model to show what water, H2S, and SO2 could look like. So water could look like this. So that means the hydrogens are triangles. SO3 could look like this. So the sulfur is a square. So that's H2S because that's the square in the triangles. And then this would be hydrogen H2. And then if the sun was the nucleus, it would have the protons and neutrons in it. What would the planets represent? They would represent electrons. So that's actually, that could be a space question, that could be a chemistry question, that could be an electricity question. Next page. So now we're into looking at environmental chemistry. And so I'm tired, so I'm going to stop that part and I will continue doing it this the next day.